What's going on, Battle Axe players and spectators? We're back. The season is over. We made it. For those of you that lost, which is 90% of us, it's over. We don't have to think about it anymore. For Andy, I guess the celebration begins. I haven't really heard anything from him, which is weird because I lost to him, so I was kind of expecting some sort of smack talk or anything, but he's being humble about it, which I can appreciate, but I don't know why. I would be yelling from the rooftops that I have more hardware than anyone in this league at this point, but that's just me. Obviously, we know how that ended, but if you don't, we're here to get into it. So I thought I'd go through the draft picks kind of in order and just, we go from draft night and see how the season went down. We got some numbers here to kind of encapsulate that. So here we go. As you know, defending champion Matt Aldrich, the Donkey Tigers, they had the first pick. He drafted CMC. His best pick was clearly Lamar, number one fantasy player. He was 9th in points for, 9th in points against, but he ended up finishing 5th in the regular season. So most of those, 50-50 matchups kind of went his way. He ended up finishing 6th in the playoffs. I would say that's just mostly because he didn't have any running production by the end of it. DeAndre Swift was good for a while, but didn't hold up, the Bears after that Hail Mary didn't hold up, so it was over for him. Moving on to pick 2, we had Sam. Sam got in there and got CeeDee Lamb. That was probably not his best pick. CeeDee Lamb had a little bit of a down year, partly with no Dak, partly with injuries, partly with Cowboys regressing. Whole lot of stuff there. His best pick would be a debate, honestly. Do you like the value of a top-tier tight end in round 5 in McBride? Do you like the value of the second-best running back in round 2? That was Derrick Henry, who he drafted. Or do you like, Chuba, who was a top 10 running back for most of the season, who he acquired in round 13? Obviously ended up trading him. I'm not sure. I forget who that was for, but nonetheless, the pick was a very good one. He finished 5th in points for, 9th in points against, so it is a little bit surprising that he finished at 7th for the regular season with that disparity. Nonetheless, 10th in the playoffs, won the Toilet Bowl. He had 25 transactions on the year and 4 messages. All these was 20 and 13. I believe I skipped that. Then we're moving on to Jake. You had Tyreek as his first pick. Obviously, not the best after the ligament injury from the arrest. And no Tua for most of the year. So I would say his best pick was definitely BTR in round 10 or Chase Brown around 11. Both very productive late round guys. He was 8th in points for, 5th in points against, so a little bit of an uphill climb there. He did finish the regular season in 4th and the playoffs as well in 4th. And 51 transactions, 26 messages on the year. Next team was Brad, the main commish. Bijanio Robinson, or Chupapi Bijanio as he called him. That was probably his best pick, either him or Nico. He finished 6th in points for, 2nd in points against, so obviously an uphill climb there. 58 regular season transactions and 48 messages. He finished in 10th. The playoffs was much better for him as he made those couple of trades at the deadline that really helped his team. He actually won the Toilet Bowl part of the bracket. It was obviously injuries during the week that kind of sank him, and losing some close games with that points differential. Just a tough season there. He'll be back next year. In the 105, we had Nick, who drafted Jonathan Taylor. We'll talk more about him a little bit later. His best pick was Josh Allen in round 2. It would have been Chris Godwin in round 8. He was the number 1 wideout when he got injured. But, obviously he got injured and wasn't able to compete for Nicky for the whole season. So he brought him to 3rd in points for, 1st in points against. Obviously that's just a staple for Nick at this point, unfortunately. 111 transactions, 75 messages. Would love the engagement. Obviously, he was also doing a lot of player hunting with all the injuries that he faced at running back and wide receiver. Stephon Diggs was one he had as well. So that was the real reason why he finished 6th in the regular season. And in the playoffs, he actually moved up to 5th. So he was a pretty scary team. Lucky for everyone ahead of him that he got bounced in the first round. We'll get into that more later. In the 6th slot, we had Greg, who drafted Breece Hall. Everyone's probably disgusted of him at this point, and he's a New York Jet, so that doesn't help. His best pick was definitely Jalen Hurts, round 4. I believe he had more rushing touchdowns than Saquon, so that's something. Greg was 10th in points for, 4th in points against, 30 transactions on the year, 1 message. He was regular season 9th overall and got to 8th in the playoffs. So not bad. I would say the biggest thing that probably hurt Greg's season was trading for ETN. I know he was obviously on a run at that time of the beer punishment, but decided to make a move, and it just turned out that ETN wasn't the guy this year, so better luck next year. In the 7th slot, Amon-Ra St. Brown going to Brandon. Brandon's best pick was probably Amon-Ra. If not him, then I would say JK, just because JK was round 12 and did a lot of damage early, helping Brandon get off to a huge start. He was 2nd in points for on the year, 3rd in points against, so that's why it was a little bit of a struggle for his team. A lot of those, unfortunately, didn't swing his way. He finished 8th in the regular season, got to 9th in the playoff bracket. 46 transactions, 52 messages. And I would just say overall his team was a little bit too boom or bust, especially JK, who went boom, boom, bust the rest of the year. For the most part, I mean, he had some 15-pointers here and there, but nothing like the 30 bombs he dropped week 1 and 2. In the 8th slot, you had Andy drafting Justin Jefferson over Jamar Chase, which wasn't a bad pick. Obviously, wasn't the best. Best pick was Burrow. Definitely getting a top-tier elite starting quarterback like that in round 6 was massive for him. 4th in points for on the year, 7th in points against, so a little bit of an easy climb there. 37 transactions, 40 messages, got the 2 seed bye and finished as league champion. Obviously, the only real thing to say, negatively about his team is he had a slow start. He was 1-3, but a lot of us predicted he would get out of that hole and into the playoffs. Some even predicted he would be facing them in the championship. So not very unforeseen there, but congratulations to Andy. In the 9 spot, you had local Pats fan drafting Jamar Chase, who was probably the best pick for him. If not him, then Saquon in round 2 or Evans in round 4, just because of how dynastic Evans was in the playoffs yet again. He just loves playing Carolina as well. 52 in transactions, 82 messages for local Pats fan. 1st in points for, 8th in points against. So honestly, that's probably why it was 12-2. Not real crazy there. Ended up finishing 2nd overall, though, in the playoffs. Just didn't get it done in week 17, that's all you can say. Then we're moving on to Ethan, picking at the 10 spot at the turn. He grabbed Garrett Wilson. I believe Jahmyr Gibbs was his 2nd rounder, basically back-to-back. So I'd still give his best pick to Brock Bowers, though, in round 10. Rookie-setting tight end. Rookie record-setting tight end, I should say. He was 7th in points for, 10th in points against, which was able to get him to the 3 spot. And he had 24 transactions, 17 messages. Finished 3rd in the regular season and the playoffs. I would say the only criticism you could probably throw at his team is maybe he traded for Breece Hall. That obviously didn't work out. I mean, you got about 10 points the first 2 weeks, and if you had made it to the championship, you would have been disappointed with 6. So just a Jet being a Jet, in my honest opinion. We do have some recaps about how the playoffs went down. The first round was extremely close in both of those matchups. Tight finishes on Monday night. Aldi had 4 players going and a substantial lead, but Aaron Jones and Will Reichard for Jake were not having it. They make the comeback, get the win by about 3 points is what it ended up being. And I believe Reichard had a late game field goal. So Jake got the win and moved on to take on the top seed. Then you had Ethan win by less than 8 points. And here's the killer. This is where we get to talk about JT. This is the one we will never forget, because it's very natural to go back and be like, what went wrong after the loss happens? But very rarely is it a situation where if JT had just crossed the ball into the end zone before dropping it, Nick's team would have won, because he lost by less than 8.1 points. That is exactly the amount that JT cost Nick's team by dropping the ball at the 1-yard line. And consequently, it rolled through the end zone, so the other team got possession of the ball, and he wasn't able to salvage at least the touchdown. And that's how Nick, unfortunately, went down this year. He had a very threatening team, obviously would have been a major threat to Andy's championship, but it was not to be. So they move on. They played the teams awaiting them in the bye week. Those matchups were not particularly close, that is Andy's and Ethan's, that is. For Jake and local Pats fan, you had a very close one where, honestly, it came down to a 14-point differential that Jacobs had to overcome with Jordan Love playing. It was down to 5 at halftime of that game, and just Jacobs unfortunately came away with an injury in the third, and because the Packers were putting away the Saints, they didn't risk it and leave him out there. They took him out, and over the course of the rest of the game, Love only scored like another point. So probably would have been something where Jacobs could have gotten, a touchdown and any yardage at all and overcome that differential. But unfortunately for Jake, he did end up going down, and that set up the 1 and the 2 seed in the championship. And that's really all there is left to say, because it was a 50-point blowout. If you just look at what Pats fan could have done differently with all the 20 transactions that were made in championship week, there was only one that would have swung anything by 17 points, and that's going to come nowhere near doing the damage that needed to be done. So Andy ends up pulling the ultimate IQ move, sending Mixon and JSN to his opponent, who both had less than 5 points in championship week. Great job, Andy. Congratulations. You are the 2024 Battle Axe champion. And until 2025, we're going to have to live with that. So big shout out to May Commish. Brad, appreciate you being the commissioner of our league and all the things that you've done for this league to make it fun and engaging for everyone every year. Thank you to all the participants for coming out each and every year, especially for the draft. In-person drafts are the best. And I look forward to another one with you all next September. Have a great offseason.